Oliver, can we start by having you introduce yourself?
Okay, yeah.
Tell us who you are, where you are now at the moment, and maybe just a little bit on what has led you there in your career.
Yeah, my name is Oliver Truesdale-Jutras. I am a chef turned now culinary director. It's my first non-chef title, actually.
I love that.
I have been in the industry since I was very, very young. My father was a chef, so I started out doing dishes a dog's age ago. And then sort of very early on decided I wanted to pursue a path in sustainable hospitality. So started out in a restaurant which is now closed called Sea, which did the Oceanwise programming for with the Vancouver Aquarium and Sea together made the sort of sustainable seafood program for Canada.
Cool.
Similar to the Monterey Bay in the States, right? I then worked at a restaurant called Domus, which is also closed. This is a long time ago, so you know, restaurant ages being what they will. At which I not only met my wife, but also we didn't use any suppliers. It was all direct to farm. Okay. So nobody was spoken to or paid that was not someone who had their hands in the soil or on the cows or whatever it may be. But they were farmers, fishermen, producers, direct to restaurant. I then moved through San Francisco and Australia, doing like extremely fine dining restaurants, just trying to get my chops, sort of, so to speak. But also, probably more than I thought at the time, getting exposed to a side of the industry that ended up being something that kind of irks me about fine dining. Is just like the pursuit of excellence at the cost of all else was something that I understand the appeal of, but reject as a notion. And increasingly, I think it seems to be that the world is following suit. So that's good. And then started a company doing pop-ups around the world. Was kind of moved through Japan and Sri Lanka and Morocco and Denmark and the Netherlands and France twice and back to North America, etc. Before we were in the south of France, and a woman named Cynthia Shua, who owned Open Farm Community, came to our restaurant and just like kind of pushed 2 tickets across the pass at the end of the meal and was like, "Get your asses over here and like see what's up." So we did, and we loved it, and we moved to Singapore and helmed that project for 6 years and got it into the Michelin Guide and sort of helped pioneer a little bit the scene of sort of farm to table in Singapore. So obviously has some increased complexities above and beyond what it would be in Canada or whatever. And then I most recently had my own company doing regenerative hospitality and have now landed at Potato Head as Culinary Director in Bali, which is ultra exciting and has been sort of one of the iconic names in sustainable hospitality for a very long time. And I couldn't be happier to be there. So, yeah.
So I love the sort of winding path that's gotten you, and I think relevant for this conversation, where I want to really chat about the kind of balance between idealism when it comes to sustainability and a sort of vision of what we want for the future of hospitality, and realism, the sort of reality of operators. And I think that sort of ties to your mention of fine dining and that like pursuit of excellence above all else, and how that sort of is fading away. But we've got there's maybe a similar thing that happens in sustainability, where we've got like an idealized version of what we want to see, and then a disconnect, and then people maybe lose hope a little bit. Or I mean, talk to me a little bit about what does that
I see it as a tension between like basically idealism or I think it's more like vision and pragmatic aspects. I think to be honest, like the only humble brag that I'll do this whole I don't think I'm the best chef. I don't think I'm like by any means. I have friends who outclass me in multiple spaces in hospitality, but I think what I do very well is take ideals and render them pragmatic. Be better than most people about diplomatically explaining to visionaries how and when we must compromise in order to make a vision happen in reality. So I think it's that's been a real talent throughout my career. Obviously, when you work with chefs and you're like sous chefing for someone who's a creative genius, but they'll design something that operationally is going to murder like 12 commies. You need to have this like kind of game where you're being very diplomatic about trying to make the dish operationally feasible, etc. So I had that experience, but now it's more like juggling like real visionaries, like, you know, people who are coming to the table with like architecture visions and operational visions that are just like mind-boggling, and going, okay, cool, how can we actually do this to the best of our ability without sacrificing either like human lives or the sustainability aspect, or and make it, you know, fun, profitable, engaging. That's where I actually feel my real talent lies. So it's great that you asked that question. Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit, because that talent came from lessons learned along the way. And so tell me, you know, can you think of some of the lessons that you've picked up at various places that you have worked that have helped build that?
As it pertains directly to sustainability, or just in general?
I mean, in general, but I love linking it to this idea of your ability to sort of navigate between the lofty space and the practical space, and like how you've learned that throughout your career.
Yes, well, my joke term is that I'm the business end of the hippie stick.
Okay.
Because it's like, what I really felt growing up was that I was seeing all these ideals that people were espousing that resonated harmoniously, but then failed miserably in the real world, right? And this is kind of typified by the hippies. Like for me, that is like the movement that had the best ideals that failed the most, and like completely didn't manage to affect corporate America's rampage across America and the world, basically. And so for me, it was always this thing where I was like, no, what I need to be able to do is transform my ideals and other people's ideals into something that can functionally work. So whether it's working with like, you know, even early on in the career with the like sustainable seafood thing is going, okay, we're a super busy restaurant, and like this supplier doesn't have enough. Like, how can we rearrange a dish so that what they can supply is enough, and we don't have to go get, you know, a non-certified supply or whatever it is. So little details like that on the plate, then translate eventually into going, okay, look, I get that you want to have this building that is like 2 overlapping boxes and it symbolizes something really important, but we need, from an operational perspective, to go, our hoods have to be here. There has to be this pipe running up the side. So like just balancing out people who are really creative and visionary with pragmatic operational. And part of that is kind of like learning to empathize with both parties, right? It's just going like, I love this vision. Now let's not fuck it up when we're building it. Because like what I've seen happen so often with visions is that the starting point is great. And then the end product, when it fails, it hurts everybody. Because people spend so much time executing a vision, people care so much about it, and then if it doesn't like render itself ideal on the ground, then you end up with people who are jaded all along the whole value chain. It's the creative team, the operational team, everybody is just kind of going like, well, this didn't work how we wanted it to. So part of it is just getting all the stakeholders together and going like, look, let's make sure the vision's real. What are the important aspects of it? Like maybe if you could have 6 things here, but we have to drop 2, what are those 6 things going to be? And then sort of, adding a value to each piece, and then rendering it into a real thing. And even going so far as to go like, okay, here, we're on this rooftop now, but it's like, this is our restaurant. Like, let's fake this space as our restaurant. Like, walk through it with me. And like, we put big charts of tables on the ground and everything, and like run the fake services and go, oh, well, you know what, like we're running into each other every time we cross over here, etc. So, and then maybe we have to adjust the space, or maybe we have to adjust flow of service, or whatever it is. But it's it really is like, I don't know that it's necessarily true that visionaries like can't get bogged down in the details, so they need people to consider the details for them. But in my experience, they're not necessarily the most pragmatic people. Like, there's not a lot of visionaries who go like, this is the big picture, now let me individually drill down into what the dude on the floor. Like, there's not a lot of restaurant designers who put a priority on stewarding, let's say. And like, if stewarding goes if stewarding goes down, your restaurant's fucked. Like, it's over. So knowing operational priorities and knowing visionary priorities and finding out where those overlap and where those clash is like, I don't know, it's kind of like weaving or something.
I love that, but I love that you kind of started from this place of, it's actually radical empathy for both sides.
Totally.
And I think that we don't think about that a lot in the industry, like how that empathy then materializes as good operational practice. So I think that's really really, really interesting.
And yeah, part of it is also just being able to like coherently explain to both sides like why this has to be like this and why this can't be like this.
Yeah.
I don't think like there are some visionaries who are like completely, no, it's my way or the highway. But you know, that reputation is mostly media driven. Like in my experience, if you can cogently explain why something won't work, there's not a lot of people who are like, well, fuck it, we're going to do it anyways. Like that doesn't happen very much. So yeah, definitely.
So expanding on your experience with relationships a bit, because that is all about navigating those different types of relationships.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been big in your career is relationships with farmers, and how do we build direct and transparent relationships with farmers for restaurants. And, you know, especially going from, you know, North America and those experiences to then Singapore, quite a specific experience.
Very different landscape.
Different landscape when it thinks about, and now in Bali and just thinking about Asia in general. What are the things that you've learned, I guess, about how to build effective relationships with down the supply chain, and how can more operators think about like getting on board with building direct relationships?
Yeah, I mean, there is a geographic component to some of this, right? Like in Singapore, we found it easier to like pull threads through suppliers.
Okay.
But having to make promises where it's like, okay, look, I don't necessarily need to go direct to the farmer, but I need to know what the farmer's doing.
Yes.
Like I can't, in good faith, supply food from this farm without knowing. And there's too many restaurants doing this, in my opinion. Like just going, just give me lamb. Like whatever. I don't really care where it comes from. Or maybe it's New Zealand lamb or whatever. But they don't functionally know. If you ask them what the farm looks like, they wouldn't know what it looks like. And for me, so after my apprenticeship at sea, I did this like tour around Canada working on organic farms.
Okay.
I just like bought a van and put a mattress in the back and like drove across the country.
Love it.
And I think the reason, so just the first principles reason is because like the only job I've ever rejected in my life because it's too hard is organic farming.
Yeah.
Like
really,
super
really,
respect
really,
to those people,
really,
but
really
fuck
hard.
that. It's so impossible. I can't believe like the depth of commitment is so real there, because it really is just like every day aching all over and knowing you're going to do the exact same thing the next day is like we do it as chefs, but it's actually another level. And like, I mean, everybody kind of knows this about chefs. Like it's already another level from most jobs. Yeah. They're another level from chefs. And it's,
but this is also why I think it's important for chefs to get out and see farms 100%. To like understand that and recognize that, because I think there's a bit of a, don't take this the wrong way, but like a bit of a point of pride in quite a lot of chefs about how physically grueling chefing is. And, you know, and there's like
a masochistic thing.
An identity in that. And in a way, there's maybe a bit of a sense that like there's nothing else that's harder than this, than what I do. And then you go to like you go see a farm and you're like, actually, and it gives you a different level of respect for for cost of the ingredient and
100%.
For how
and like just labor, like it's this thing where they get paid nothing for their product, and then you like in general 30% of it goes in the bin or to landfill or whatever. You just kind of go like, it's a mad system, right? And that's really the first principles place where I was coming from when prioritizing relationships with farmers. So in let's say in North America, it's relatively easy because the farm to table movement has sort of come a long way. Let's say like if I had been cooking in the 80s and 90s, it might have been a little less transparency. I think there was a time when it was like big middlemen doing a lot of supply, but that's especially in the sort of upper tier of restaurants largely faded away. Most upper tier restaurants use at least a few suppliers direct from farms, if not have like a relationship with farmers where they're going like, I'll buy your futures, like we're going to give you cash up front so that you can have security to plant XYZ. We'll work together even on like choice and curation of planting, etc. And those relationships are super meaningful and awesome, and like could not want more of those relationships to happen more, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's not the right way to structure that sentence. And then coming to Singapore from sort of moving around the world a little bit, you still have those spaces. Singapore is quite unique in that it's gone from what was once like 47% agricultural land to just under 2%. So like the farming community in Singapore is really, really small. In our first 5 years of operating there, 2 of the last like few organic operations closed, and there's almost nobody doing organics or any sort of biodynamic or sort of regenerative forestry or whatever farming in a way that is not like a hobby farm.
Right.
There's now one new one in Johor, which is actually our old farmer from OFC who's gone and took over a palm oil plantation and is redoing through syntropic farming methods, so like no input farming. It's amazing. Cool. But let's just say like regionally there's quite scant choices in that department, and what you end up doing is like having to promise suppliers from Australia, from elsewhere, like if you can get me the top tier of ethical product, like I will never go behind your back to go straight to that farmer to import it. Just like I need to know about it, because what was really, I don't want to say traumatizing is the wrong word, but what was really staggering about Singapore is that the obfuscation of supply is very present there. Like you get big booklets of supply, but you never could find out anything about the farm, not a website, not a photo, nothing. And that was deeply troubling to me. I mean, Open Farm was meant to be the antidote to that in a lot of ways. Like it was conceived as a way to reconnect people to food, whether that was like toddlers coming in and playing in the garden and picking leaves and stuff, or just our food program. That was the like full intention. So we kind of had carte blanche. However much procurement wheedled at my, like, you know, we had restaurants in our group that used like 3 suppliers. And we were using, like by the end of the first year, I had like 47 suppliers and they were just like, what are you doing and why are you doing this to me? But I really think that those relationships are, at least for me, it's like the top tier of chefing ends up being something more like curation of amazing product. And for me, it's like, if that can be amazing and responsibly grown product, that is the like pinnacle of actual cookery. Like really, you're a conduit for whatever the earth can put out, the best case scenario, to get into people's mouths and plates.
Do you think we're getting, I mean, do you think that, you know, historically, especially with some of the conversations I've had in Asia, there's this sense that it used to be top tier product looked like bringing lobsters from Brittany, and it looked like caviar, and it looked like European imported ingredients. But it feels like over time there's increasing recognition that flavor, like, and method of farming and all of these things are actually really interlinked, and like flavor and not spending time like ripening on an airplane or, you know, in transit, and makes a real difference to so do you feel like that is picking up in Asia as well, this recognition that like actually like responsibly grown ingredients and have a flavor component? We choose them because they're the best, not just because not because of sustainability, but because of flavor.
Well, I definitely have to say like a yes and no.
Okay.
I think yes, in that most everybody recognizes it for the typical lexicon of chef products.
Yes.
My fear a little bit is that we're not seeing, so there's sort of 2 big movements in like, again, we're talking about a thin slice of the industry here, but we're talking about the people who are pushing the envelope a little bit. And it's like, so they want to work with regenerative farmers, or farmers who are at least like caring about the flavor of the end product, right? Which typically translates as nutrition as well, like in general, with some weird exceptions. But my worry is that in general, what's being farmed in those methods tends to be crops that already have a value placed on them. And that indigenous products are largely ignored in this conversation. I don't see right now people who are farming for flavor with indigenous products very much. I think there's like 2 things, where one is like chefs want to use indigenous products to, sometimes it's competitive edge, sometimes it's they want to represent their heritage or whatever, but they're not necessarily focusing on farming methods with those indigenous products. They're kind of happy to just go, wherever that comes from, I'll take it, but that's from the land and stuff. Sometimes that's because they are normally farmed in a way that's pretty responsible. Sometimes it's just because linking the 2 makes it so much harder to find a source that it's very difficult. whereas like it's quite easy now to find, let's say like beets or something that are responsibly farmed, but that's like, I don't need responsibly farmed beets in Asia. I want like, what I really want to see, and I always give the example of ginger flower because it's this flavor that when I moved to Singapore, it was like one of the most novel things that I experienced because we just had them everywhere. And I was like, okay, I've never had ginger flower before. But I've still never seen someone growing ginger flower for flavor. Okay. It's always just like, this is a border plant, it's a shade, it just grows under banana trees, like it's around. But it's not going like, what's the pinnacle? You know that like Japanese style farming of like, we're going to make one tomato, it's going to be the best fucking tomato you've ever had. Yeah. I've still not seen that for a lot of Southeast Asian indigenous plants. I really look forward to that. If and when that occurs. Yeah. We're going to get rained out.
Hey, it's a little bit. Typhoon.
We'll push it.
I think that's really interesting because I think that, we're
it's awesome if we sit here soaking wet.
I think I think that fits, or that's an interesting conversation to think about where it's going, because we're increasing our like understanding of how important biodiversity is, and that needs to change what we're putting on our plates. And so like you say, we can't just have this vision of, you know, regenerative farming that then means we're going to serve beets. We have to be thinking about how does that encompass a sense of place.
Yeah, well, even like I talk to farmers a lot in Southeast Asia about like when you transfer biodynamic principles over here. Yeah. Like, okay, so there's things in biodynamic principles that are quite like of a place, right? Yes. It's like a horn full of cow shit. That goes, and it's like, okay, there's not really a cattle farming culture here. Right. So like, what is the alternative that localizes that principle? And like, you know, that's there to introduce certain biome to the soil. Right. Well, what's the translation for that in Asia? Yeah. And that's still the piece I'm sure someone's working on it. I just haven't met them yet. Okay. And I really want to meet that person.
Yeah, I'd like to meet that person.
Like I really love this idea of like, you know, biodynamics is an awesome farming framework, but it was clearly designed for like Austria, German farming systems. Yeah. And we haven't quite manipulated it to be like, okay, so Southeast Asian biodynamics, like, or even just tropical zone, like if you want to look at it across a band, right? Yeah. What those principles necessarily are, and maybe we need to tap into like a lot more sort of indigenous farming methods, or like I just got introduced to an Indonesian concept called tegalan, which is like the in-between zone between something wild and something cultivated. Okay. But they draw a lot of food from these zones. Okay. So the Japanese have a similar concept called satoyama, which is like, it's the forest just outside the village. Okay. Where it's safe to go because there's not wild animals and it's not deep dark forest. Yeah. But there's a lot of food sources within those spaces. Okay. And I love, like, this is like such a romantic notion for me. But like, how do we then maximize that into restaurants and inform menus based on those spaces? Because that's where the really interesting product is, actually. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, that fits so much thematically with all the different things that you're talking about, this sort of in-between space, and how do we connect this in-between space between operational and ideal? How do we connect the in-between space between cultivated and wild? How do we connect this in-between space? So we just talked about farming and what you would like to see happening more in Asia. Some practical things that you'd like to see in more restaurants. And so supporting those farms. No.
That's a good way to start, supporting those farms. In order to do that, do you think that we need better sharing of who those suppliers are, where those farms are? And, you know, because I've been hearing from a lot of people like that they don't know where to.
Yeah, and I mean, this is always a thing that like there's sort of a difficult dog chasing its own tail thing that happens sometimes. Sometimes people are kind of looking to not look on occasion, like, oh, that would make my life harder, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do a cursory search online.
Couldn't find it.
Oh, look, no farm showed up. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. Then sometimes it's also that there's that economic opportunity is not clear to farmers. Yeah. Like, I want to be clear that farmers are really like pragmatic people most of the time. Yeah. Most farms are not making tons of money. Like, if you approach someone with a conversation like, look, I'll buy your entire production for next year if you farm it in this way, that probably you would love to, but you don't think is economically feasible. And if we can sort of come to an agreement on what you're farming,
Yeah.
I've still never met a farmer who is just like, no, I grow what I want, fuck off. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned in the chat earlier, like at Potato Head, we're lucky enough that like that's a really easy conversation in Bali, and we even have now like the mechanism for transition for people, which has been extremely beneficial. So, I mean, the number of individual farmers, because farms are quite small in Indonesia typically, like there's not a lot of the monoculture things that you see in sort of North American context, like farms the size of some islands in Indonesia. Like that we now have like 500 farmers that we talk to and go like, hey, and we take everything. Like we can devour that production. Like it's no problem. And that's, so obviously we're kind of blessed to be in that circumstance in which we have the volume that can drive a shift in the farming methods as well. But I would like to see more people having that conversation. And my worry is that I don't really feel like that should necessarily fall to the chef. The chef can certainly be a driver in that conversation, but I think it's ultimately like kind of unfair to expect someone to like create menus, run restaurants, manage people, schedules, labor costs, food food waste, and then, oh yeah, by the way, on your day off, like you go off to this farm and you know, understand agriculture in a deep enough way to have that sort of radical empathy with the farmer to be able to create something together. I don't know that that's necessarily a realistic expectation.
So how do you think how do you, because I completely agree with you. I don't think that is a realistic expectation. And I often think with, you know, sustainability sometimes, these are unrealistic expectations of a job that isn't a sitting in front of a computer face job, you know, and so I feel like one solution to that is by saying like there actually is a role that's needed in restaurants that's not, you know, we name roles, we name CDPs and SUs and all of this sort of stuff, and restaurants naming a person. And you know, one of my favorite examples has been you know, from a group that we work with is JKS Restaurant Group in London. Holly Letch, who's now their sustainability manager for the group, started as front of house at Lyos with a passion for sustainability, and so she sort of stepped into a, you know, position there, started taking on some of that burden, started working closely with James and the team, and then that sort of needs to be another role. You need a person that's going to take that on, but we also need to recognize it. We need to pay it. We, you know,
well, that's always the trick a little bit, right? It's like, I mean, fundamentally that role, like, this is a larger social context conversation, but like it's not just restaurants, that like in every business we kind of socialize the downstream largely, and I think that that's something that we need to, like, as a society, have a conversation about. But then those roles could really exist, because if you necessarily have to deal with your own waste, you'll have a position that
does
that minimizes waste, and the same with procurement side. Like if you necessarily, like we do, I mean, a lot of my targets are crossed with procurement. So like our organic targets are not, it's not on our individual venue chefs, it's me and our procurement team. So our venue chefs go, hey, this is what we need, and our procurement is, their role is to go talk to farmers about how they can grow it organically in the amounts we need it in. So we kind of do have that role. It actually crosses 3 departments, because it's culinary, we have a sustainability department, and the procurement department. But all of us work together on those sort of KPIs, however you want to incentivize people to do things. But it's a little more difficult to imagine for smaller operations. Like when you're talking about a team that's like 4 in the kitchen and 3 in the front of house or something, it's like, we're gonna get this sustainability person on the books, but they're not going to do service or like. I think that's the thing, is that
realistically, it is going to need to double up, right? It's going to need to be somebody who does like that role where we're talking a front of house combo, but also has an additional you know, or what does that front of house person working 5 days instead of 4 or whatever look like, so that you kind of split some more time that goes into these things.
I completely agree. And for a small operation, you don't need a full-time job, right?
No,
like it's no. It'd be like what often happens already at restaurants is like your social media manager is just like a waiter who happens to be great at TikTok and Instagram or something.
Took some good pictures one time.
Exactly. That's even the best. You took a photo at staff meal and you're the social media manager now.
Forever and ever.
Yeah. So I think for hotels and organizations, that position should definitely exist.
Yeah.
For smaller restaurants, I think there's still maybe support needed in that.
Yeah.
In that way, and maybe it's like that support could just come in the way of like communication in general.
And like external community building, 100%, and getting it from outside. I have kind of a couple more things. I mean, we could talk forever about these different subjects, and pick your brain on different things. But I like looking into the future of sustainable hospitality. Are there any things that you think are kind of on the cutting edge now that you're keeping an eye on, that you're kind of going, I want to see how that whether it's a trend or an idea or a thought kind of evolves?
So there's I think I have good answers.
Okay.
One is something that's always sort of happened, but classically been not as consistent as maybe it's becoming, which is sort of like in industry collaboration.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it more from sources that I would never have imagined it.
Okay. So
like, this is going to be very Bali specific, but like Fins is one of our partners on the community waste project. Yeah. Fins is like a party boy venue.
Yeah.
And so like that's not a venue that if you named all the hotels in Bali, I was expecting to be jumping on.
Yeah.
So I think there's unexpected collaborations. That's a really cool one, and more, let's say, like ethics-based decision making happening across the value chain, as opposed to just in the very like progressive, environmentally oriented organizations. That gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Also, maybe in that sort of area as well, is sort of the larger hotel organizations are on two sides, like becoming a little bit more agile on sustainability, and also I think they're very conscious that ESG reporting and legal frameworks are coming like a freight train, so they're kind of beginning to get ready to be very again, like agile on sustainability and move in the right direction quite quickly. Even if they're not doing it yet, they're kind of setting the groundwork for it.
I think that's definitely true. I think it's also, I've kind of wavered back and forth on whether or not I think it's reporting that's driving it, because I think it was, and then Europe has kind of equivocated a little bit on what does reporting look like, and so I think that is kind of yo-yoing a bit back and forth on is it going to be reporting that drives it, or I think the reality is it's actually risk management that's driving it. I think that a lot of people are looking into the future, forecasting into the future, and they're saying like, oh shoot, like we're
much less willing to swear on a podcast than I
darn carrots. We are looking into the future, and we're realizing that our supply chain is like in some real risk of like
resilience stuff,
flooding or extreme weather, drought, etc.
Well, if it's only their supply chain, sometimes it's their properties.
Too, well, we've seen that this week in the video that's going viral from the typhoon in Hong Kong is the Fullerton, and those doors smashing in. So I think there's a real sense of like resilience to their supply chain. There's also a real question mark that I'm perceiving a bit in that space, where we're recognizing that we need kind of fewer but higher value tourists, and like tourism is sort of needing to take a different kind of shape in certain parts of the world or certain places, and so rethinking what does tourism look like if like volume changes, if our perception of who that person is and how they spend their money changes. So I think that's where hotels are like starting to recognize. And then like genuinely, waste programs. You were talking before about like you guys are known at Potato Head for the amazing work that's being done with waste.
Yeah.
But it's also being done because it's in your face. Like you guys are the waste is washing up on the beach, and it is a like negative externality to your property. And if you weren't doing something about that, like your property would decrease in value, because what tourist wants to come sit on a beach that's covered in plastic?
Yeah, well, and to a wider extent, like even if it was just our property that was doing it, it wouldn't work, right? Like it has to be all of us together. Like so there's a necessity to the collaboration that I really like. I think that's it just has to continue, and my only worry is that, like, obviously with economic times being a little bit less certain than they have been for maybe two decades or a little bit more, sometimes people revert to worse behavior.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's my only worry with those things, because the outlook on in-industry collaboration for me is extremely sunny. Like I think it's like an amazing space right now, and it's moving towards more and more amazing things. It's just that one factor of, like, if things get really bad, and like if all of those high value tourists suddenly dry up, and like what then does it look like when we collaborate? And is it just this parsing pennies sort of exercise where it becomes not useful for anybody and problematic? So that on the sort of human front, I think that's something I'm looking forward to, is like more and better collaboration between in industry. Technologically, I think there's some stuff. I think everybody's very bullish on certain technologies that I see practical applications for them in a lot of other sectors before I see it in hospitality. For me, hospitality is still very much a human-based business. You can render things more efficient with technology for sure, but like I don't think it's going to meaningfully move the needle in our industry. We're just talking about like AI and it's not going to meaningfully move it as much as it can in, say, like derivatives trading and stuff, where it's like, and the problem is that sort of industries with, I don't know how to put this in a way that's like nice to hospitality, but like classically, like people kind of value hospitality workers lower than they would like a Wall Street trader or something, which is fucking stupid, but still is the wide society perception, right? These industries tend to be the testing bed for technologies, because it's perceived that the human collateral from the fallout of technologies is less important in these industries. That's like something I'm being very cautious about when people are telling me about the next AI solution for whatever. Where I feel like the technology can come in very strongly can be education. So like pre-entering hospitality, how prepped people can be. Then like I'm very keen. I don't know if you saw the Hospro stuff. But I've left that for Potato Head, but those guys are doing amazing
really cool stuff.
I think there's a role for technology to play, but I in no way think it's going to be as disruptive as a lot of people are predicting for hospitality. There's no way that it can do the same thing that being served. Like, we're a social animal. The bio triggers from hospitality are very deeply ingrained in us. It's not something you can replace with AI or a robot or whatever.
There's a really good article that was in the New York Times about is it Stephen Ellis, the founder of Chipotle, he's trying to create a solely robot operated
like
fast casual unmanned restaurant chain. And there was a really interesting article in the New York Times about like why it's not working and all of the challenges. And if you what you realize is that all of what the skills that are necessary in hospitality are some of the most like human skills, like the ability to multitask and the ability to like do two things at once, connect with people, to anticipate and perceive an accident that's about to happen, like these 100%. And to react to the unpredictable and all of these things that are like the life of a restaurant. And you actually realize like computers are built on predictability. Robots and AI technology is all kind of on this idea of being able to predict what happens next based on what's happened before, and like name a restaurant in which anything ever looks the same as it did the day before. And so you kind of realize, you're right, that it's the most human of industries, and it kind of meets the most human of needs. And so there are ways that technology is going to play a role, but replacing service, I'm not
Well,
sure.
I mean, like, I have to say, like, so AI aside, like, technology has played a role over the past, like, especially during and post COVID, delivery, like delivery tech as a disruptor to our industry it has to be the single biggest disruption to hospitality that's happened in the past decade. Like
easily.
It's not even, I don't even think it's up for discussion or argument really. Like, so there's things that, and I think that'll continue, just for the record, the delivery trajectory. I sort of, if we're getting very like wooey, I think eventually that there's going to be like home-tels and home restaurants.
Okay.
Like someone will come in and like set up your own space that you own as like a restaurant experience and create it for you in a really serious way, because like it's a lower capex way to do a refined experience that can be very deeply personal. But it's obvious that people are kind of loath to leave their comfort zones of home. There are even examples of this already. Like, have you seen the Heidi Lau things?
No. But
like they'll like come to your house and basically like set up a full hot pot table and like it's basically like the restaurant experience in your home. And then come back and clear it all and take it away. And that's like the taster of what that probably eventually becomes in my perspective.
I think it's going to be interesting, because I think we're going to live through, I mean, just like we were talking about with weather and extreme weather events and all of this sort of stuff. Socially, I think we're living through quite volatile times, and so I think there's going to be quite a like swinging of the pendulum that we'll experience. And I think
definitely.
you'll have kind of two extremes of what like you're going to have people that fully embrace this not wanting to leave your comfort zone, the majority of your life being digital and online. And you're going to have a full rejection of that at the same time. And we're going to create a hospitality community that kind of goes in two directions, I think, to cater for this and to cater for that.
Well,
I
was going to mention it earlier, that just on the word community, that like the real problem for unmanned restaurants is that like outside of like raw convenience, you have no real incentive to go there. And it's never going to like connect to a place in the same way. Like, I recognize that already most QSR ventures don't really do this, but like your traditional restaurant is like, like everybody's daughter worked there before college, and like everybody's son used to be in the pot wash, and like we all know each other, and like when you go to the restaurant you see somebody that you know, and blah blah blah. And that's been supplanted to a degree, but it can never be completely supplanted. And restaurants that have a sense of like place, like belong to a neighborhood or whatever, are just never going to go away. I mean, you can try as hard as you might, but people will always want that experience. So that's
a perfect place to end it.
Cool.
That's great. Thank you so much.